Good morning, it's Ginny and Tim at DS Tech in Escanaba, Michigan. And we are talking about an incident that happened to one of our distributors. We have several distributors, but this was a big one. This was a big one, and it can happen to anyone.
Probably saw the news.
Yeah, you probably saw it on the news, and if you didn't, well, then we're the first to tell you about it.
There you go.
And there are some lessons we can take away, as usual, from every incident that we come across.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, drop them. If you've heard of any incidents, tell us about them. I'd love to hear about it. And then not only that, but sign up for our newsletter, and we'll tell you at the end how to get a hold of us for a free security assessment to help your business stay on top of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
with that, basically, we're going to go over some of the incident that happened with Ingram Micro, some of the stuff. They got a ransomware attack over the Independence Day holiday, 4th of July weekend, and we can kind of go, it's still so early, it's not all the details are even out yet, but we can kind of go over some ramifications, some takeaways, and still take some lessons learned from the event. So
this is like a supply chain thing, right?
Yeah,
for
basically
MSPs.
Yeah,
because a lot of us order from
They're basically a giant distributor that whether it's licensing, whether it's components, all kinds of stuff, you can order stuff from them. So on July 3rd, 2025, so far what we know is that they suffered a ransomware attack that brought their global operations to a halt. Their website, their ordering systems, as well as their logistics platforms, and even phone support was gone. So just imagine as businesses, not just your computer, your email stops working, but like everything works, including communication and things. So it's very good to have a plan. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The group was called the SafePay Ransomware Group, claimed responsibility. Again, it may or may not be, just depending. Everyone's always claiming things like that. It's a newer but aggressive actor known for targeting corporate infrastructure, particularly VPNs and stolen credentials and password spray attacks. So the idea is that they go on the dark web. You hear about those dark web leaks where your credentials are leaked or whatever, or you use your password from one portal to the next. They just take these emails and password combinations and just go crazy and try them until they maybe get lucky and find one that lets them in, or maybe you had an employee forgot to turn off their account and it's still active. There's various ways they can get in, but so account hygiene is important. Initial reports suggest that the attackers may have accessed their systems through Palo Alto's global VPN, bypassing outdated MFA mechanisms. While the entry point has not been confirmed yet, it does mirror a pattern that we've seen before: exploitation of soft entry points like remote access portals.
What does that mean? Outdated MFA mechanism.
I'm assuming because you could do like the MFA where you have to put in the number. There's some where you just hit a button. There's some with the different codes, and some of them are more through alert fatigue, where if you just hit a button and call it good, that can be good. But the ones where they force you to actually look at the screen, confirm a number, and put it in are kind of a next level more secure, because it's not just a tap. Because sometimes you get so many MFA attacks, what could happen is they notice, hey, you log in every day at about 9 o'clock in the morning, blah, 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 or whatever time. So they may just try to log in at the same time you do, and you're like, well, it's weird, an alert, whatever, and you just hit the button, and now you just let them in.
Oh.
So they may purposely try to just get in, hoping an employee, for whatever reason, 2 a.m. is like, what's my phone doing? And they just hit a button.
I had that happen to my Amazon account, actually.
Yeah.
It kept telling me that it kept giving me MFA codes, and I was like, I'm not even trying to log in.
That means someone was trying to get into your account, potentially, and so when that happens, immediately change your password.
Yep, I did.
Yeah, okay,
I had to reset. It was a pain in the butt because I had to reset all my Alexa devices and everything.
Yep, and then you're like, I got to change my password now. I got to re-log in on 27 devices. Great.
Right?
Yes. But that's kind of what, again, it's not confirmed, but that is a thing that they can do. So some various takeaways, not just for Ingram, but for the rest of us. So again, redundancy is resilience. So many MSPs couldn't place orders, and some that had multiple vendor relationships like us, thankfully, we could still stay operational. So the lesson learned there is don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Same thing like backups. Don't just rely on one backup. You want to have multiple backups. Well, think about that with your vendor relationships. If a vendor goes down or certain people you rely on, do you have a backup in place? And start thinking a big picture with that.
Yeah, we have several distributors too. They don't all have the same things, but which is why we have them. But yeah. So.
And now a big thing with returning to the office, remote access is still a risk. So obviously, with the height of the pandemic, everyone's working remote, and a lot of that's still lingering in business today, which is fine. But when you are dealing with tons of remote employees, it's harder to secure every endpoint and every environment that you're doing. So having, it just talks about basically how VPNs versus modern access models. Yes, VPNs are still widely used, but they are also hugely targeted right now. So if you're still depending on a username and password and MFA alone, without using like a certificate based or conditional access, you could be exposed. So usually we want to pay for that extra licensing in Microsoft and really set up that extra rules to really lock down certain accounts and not just rely on only MFA. It talks about how MFA fatigue and exceptions are dangerous. So one misstep, like disabling MFA for one VIP user just because they don't want to deal with it anymore, or you forget, there should be 0 exceptions and no shortcuts. If you have MFA in your business, everyone has to adhere to it. And you don't get the exception for the one person just because it's inconvenient, because that's going to be the person that they get in through. So
even if it's the CEO.
Yes, yes, 100%, because they're targeted more than regular employees, so they're actually more important to have extra security on. Fundamentals beat buzzwords. So this talks about how AI is hot, but it can't replace basic cyber hygiene. So basically AI can't fix, everything. So again, like regular people having regular patching, role-based access control, and continuous authentication still matters more than just the shiny tech promises of log in here and you can instantly log in and all that stuff. It's still important to have basic security hygiene through everyone in the employee that understands, hey, if you get this an alert and it's at a weird time, don't hit a button on it. Don't approve it. You should ignore that alert if that's how they're getting in, or various topics that we talk about in security awareness. Just constantly having that and reiterate that even once a year refresher for your staff can be huge. Vendor transparency matters. So to their credit, Ingram was up front. They posted a cyber incident banner on their homepage with immediate status updates. The transparency contrasts how some vendors can obfuscate during the incidents where they kind of go dark and they kind of wait for a little bit before they post. But having that communication while it's happening is very important and helps. And then it talks about the human impact, not just MSPs on the customer. So think about, yes, it may be frustrating. You may be frustrated at them, but think about their staff. When you go through an incident, there's a huge emotional burden that comes with that too, of the stress. Emotional overreactions from the community doesn't help either. And they talk about how, as a tech community as a whole, when something like this happens, we want to go into it with the idea of let's get some takeaways, let's figure it out, and not just like blame and throw shade at various people. Because, for example, there's comments like, I'll never use Ingram again. Well, this doesn't really help anything. Really, you should be asking questions like, what am I doing to make sure this doesn't happen to me or my clients again? Like if you're an MSP where you had all your eggs in one basket and you were stuck where you could not do anything because they're down, well, just reflect on that and maybe see about how you could have another relationship or a back relationship, so that way you can move forward and
it's like
help your clients.
A victim mentality there. It's like don't throw more shade on it and spend your energy there. Spend your energy on
and focusing how we get through it, because
it's not the problem, because it's a common problem everywhere.
Oh yeah, and right? Everyone's. And I don't want to say everyone's going to hit, but the whole phrase is not a matter of if but when. It's like the security and everything, as much as you can do. If you're really being attacked and you're a large vendor, it's going to happen to most companies. You see all these big companies it happens to. So
happens to little ones a lot too.
Yeah, little ones happens to all the time as well. You just don't hear about it in the news as much. So But yeah, so basically what you can do today. So the biggest thing is audit your active VPN connections and endpoints. So use your MFA, do the better version of MFA if you have an option of doing the one where they actually put in the numbers, or it requires them to take an extra step, as annoying as it is on the end user because it takes longer. It's more secure.
You mean like code and then fingerprint?
Yeah, and then yes, exactly. The biggest things are security as a surface edge platform. So that's like using, there's new software out there. We use it. It's an application you can install. One of the vendors that we use is called Timis, for example, and that one you can actually install on your computer, and you get a dedicated IP like a VPN, but it can be installed the second the computer turns on. And so then you can do things like IP whitelisting, meaning only people can access our resources from these known IP addresses. We do that with businesses. Like if you're in the office, you can access our stuff, but you're at home, you can't. Well, you can potentially allow people remotely to access those resources using the software. It's an extra cost with it, but think of it like I don't want to say an always-on VPN because it's not.
Do we provide that to our clients? Or
I know we're using it internally now, and I think they're discussing it, but that's a huge thing that
Yeah, because we always test things internally.
Yeah, we're testing it internally right now. It's a big new one that we're using.
Because Eric put it on my home computer.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I guess I don't want to promise too early, but there are solutions out there. That's not just one. There's all these vendors that are doing it that allow you to have dedicated IPs for your remote people. So you can then not just have the MFA, but you can have the dedicated IP, accessing controls for things like that too. Lifecycle management, so disable dormant accounts. This is a big one you see all the time where you got the staff member who leaves, so you just disable the account, or you may forget to disable the account because it was quickly, or you got a lot of turnover at your business, so it's really hard to manage constant disabling of the accounts. But if you have one account that's not disabled or removed, It's common you may just disable it while the emails flow for a couple months, and then maybe you remove it after they're not getting emails anymore. But if you don't do that second part of the hygiene, you may have an account that's 5 years old that has a weak password that you've never put MFA on, that somehow they could get on and use potentially. So, and then patch and test your incident response plan. Because again, believe it or not, when an incident hits, speed and coordination will basically help determine everything. And if you haven't practiced, you haven't tabletop, like, hey, if this system goes down, what do we do? If this system goes down, what do we do? If all the systems go down, what do we do? And you kind of think about what you would do and who you would contact and work through that. When the actual event happens, it's too hard to kind of think about what to do during the chaos of the situation. So you always want to practice those response plans and have them printed out physically. And owners and responsible parties should have them. So that way, if all communications go down, you can hopefully at least call someone with a cell phone and be like, hey, look, we got to activate a response plan. And then everyone goes to the response plan and starts following the steps that you have there.
Well, that might be a good example, because as soon as they logged in Monday morning on Ingram Micro, it was like, well, we've been hacked. You can't get in. Our systems are down.
Yep.
So they must have had a plan in place to be able to have their website.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they had a plan. It's like the first things we need to do is, shut everything down the best we can, lock and isolate, and then inform customers. I mean, I'm sure there was an order of process for them, but I'm glad that they actually had communication with clients is important. Same thing, DS Tech with all of our clients, it all goes down, right? Because you have the distributor to all the MSPs which were affected, but then think of if there's 1,000 MSPs affected, but each one's covering 100 businesses, it's another, it's a lot of people were affected by this. And so,
well, there's another example is just being open about a mistake, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because down the road, it could cause a lot more issues.
Yeah.
So if you personally click something, let your team know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because if you don't, eventually it's going to usually get through anyway. And by owning the mistake and talking about it, there's no shame in it. That's what the biggest thing. People always feel shame and that they made a mistake or whatever, but don't. Everyone makes a mistake, and you can learn from it. And that's the biggest thing, is it's people who constantly do the mistakes who are not learning from them. Those are going to be the ones that are the repeat offenders. And it's like, well, you can't only help them so much. But the people that are making mistakes and trying to better themselves so they don't happen again, those are the ones, and that's where you want to focus. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Was that all our takeaways?
That's pretty much all the takeaway.
Cool.
If you want DS Tech to help you with any of your security hardening, if you have remote employees, that kind of thing, reach out. They're definitely verify everything's on the good. And biggest thing is, just keeping up on things. Don't let it fatigue too long, like with those dormant accounts. I'm guessing because the way they got in with this specific one, it was probably some sort of an old VPN account or something that wasn't rotated on, like a dark web alert or anything. So your account hygiene, rotating your passwords, MFA, all that stuff we always talk about in every episode. It is important for a reason. And
there's a reason why we talk about it all the time. So hate to, what's the word? Beat a dead horse. I don't know.
Bush or something like that.
Whatever. Whatever the old saying is.
Yep.
But it's true. So, we can't say it enough. Stay safe out there. If you need any help with your cybersecurity, go to our website and fill in the form for your free security assessment. If you want a link, ask for it. Just say, I want the link. I'll drop it. All right. So make it a great day. We'll see you next time.